In this video, we're going to break down Biscits' track Crush, which is crushing it right now. Had to. And what we're going to do is we're just going to break down the arrangement. And the key here is just to see how the story develops over time. In the track, the two main characters of the story of the track are going to be the hooks and the groove. The hooks would be like vocals and sound design. The groove would be drums and bass. And those two guys, hooks over groove, arrangement is how those guys develop over time. And so we are going to see how the hooks and the groove in this track develop over time through the arrangement. We're going to try to take some things away from it and learn and then apply them in our own tracks. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in and break down Biscits' Crush. And let's go. So first thing, I'm just going to start off pretty simple, which is just going to be like beat. And because I'm not going to try to go too deep right away, like if we need to start breaking things down and create what I would call like a micro map, then we're just going to really get in there and figure out what's going on in the smaller detail level. But for now, let's go ahead and just write down beats because that's what's going on. Like just breaking down what I'm hearing, you know, like you've got like that really bright kind of hat. The clap is an interesting, it's a clap snare because you get that clap down the middle, but if you listen on the sides, you've got this nice low mid kind of texture down there. Doom. The hat also, you can hear there's almost two kind of sounds there. You got this really saturated kind of mid-rangier hat that's very short. And then you've got a slightly longer tail coming from a brighter hat. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds with that, but just kind of listening to the layering there. All right, so that's definitely going to be kind of a motif throughout. And so that's going to be kind of like two parts. So I'm actually going to map this out. So this is going to be like the noise, and then this is going to be the wub. The wub there, and these are going to be probably grouped together, so I'm just going to group them together. I'm not sure why they didn't group together, must have not hit it correctly, but I'm just going to call this punk for now. Whoops, punk, not pink, although it is pink. Punk, cool. Yeah, so ba-da-da, sounds like some noise, ba-da-da, and then just on the 1 E and counting 16ths. And then we get that nice wub. And then here, you can hear the bass coming in, but this is all high pass so far. So I'm just going to write HP and then HP. This is all just intro. Intros are for DJs, not producers. This just gives you a little way to introduce kind of maybe what the song is. Like you're just giving DJs different looping options here in the beginning. And, let's go here potentially, right? You could always just mix in easy, just mix in 16 bars before, but it doesn't matter. All right, and then we have the bass, but the bass is coming in here high passed, and so we will then just write HP on here, HP for high pass. Cool little skip on the bass, so very typical kind of that electro sound that's super popular right now. And so this is just on the offbeats for the most part, but there's a little skippy on it. So it's on this one right here, buttered up. Why is that starting in a weird spot? There we go. And then that would basically probably repeat, so we can loop that. But there we go. You hear a little bit, hold on, let me see. You can also hear he's breathing the clap. Breathing the clap for me is when, it's what I call when someone, you have a clap and then you have a clap that has like a little bit of a tail. There's like some difference to the clap. So it's almost like in and out, right? You can hear that little extra tail on there. So lots of cool layering going on right away. But you can hear he's starting to introduce some very minor splash hats. So splash hats are like if someone's playing on the drums and then they just hit, like imagine a closed hat, someone playing the drum, and then they open up the hat and they close it down. So like right here, watch. Right here. That's a little splash hat, a little bit to the left. So that's a little bit of a lift even in the intro here. Just adding a little bit of a bass, but also having a little bit of a lift in the drums with the splash hats. Again, very kind of a standard thing right now with that electro, almost indie dance also influence here going on. So cool. Okay, you hear how the bass evolves here too. So even in the intro, a little bit of automation. So quiet, a little bit more aggressive. So just opening up the cutoff a little bit. And then here we're gonna have an edit. So an edit for me, like you could call it a turnaround, but I like to call them edits. Edit for me is really where you have like, it's kind of a more of a higher level term, like turnaround in a bass line, for example. But an edit is like, for me, when you remove the high pass or you remove the low end through like a high pass, or just removing the kick altogether at the end of 8 bars, at the end of 16 and stuff like that. But now we'll go ahead and just assign colors here. And there we go. We're going to get that little 8-bar thing at the end there. Same thing, just with the noise and then the whoop. All right, and so now we're going to get the full drums here. So we'll type in full. This is so far pretty standard because we have 16-bar intro, slight lift in the second 8 bars, just introducing slight little things, a little bit of a bass there, and then getting right into the bass drop. So bass drop is where we drop the bass. And in fact, we're going to create a kind of a map, arrangement map here, keeping track of the higher level sections of the track. So this, for me, I would call this just intro. Intro. I'm going to color it brown. And then this right here is going to be the bass drop, where we drop the bass. And it's going to be red. Cool. All right, so what got added? You can hear now a little bit of a rides on top, very gentle. So let's just do ride here. Because also here, this kind of cool Tantra-esque, could be anything, Infiltrator. It could be none of those plugins, but you can hear this kind of like perk texture on the sides. So maybe it could be more of like a synth, actually. So it's got this cool stuttery quality to it, but I'm just going to call it a percussion for now because that's kind of the role that it's playing. And so I'll just map out kind of where it is too, but let's see. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's just playing on the little 16th note before the third beat there. Hear a little bit of I'm gonna color the beat red really quick, and then I'm gonna bring the bass under there, and then you can also hear this kind of vocal texture, a little bit of an Atmos. Maybe we'll call it just a Vox Atmos. Could be something else, but for now it sounds like a Vox Atmos to me, so that's what I'm gonna call it. So here we go. Ooh, a little bit of a crash. All right, so crashes are fun because then we could talk about effects for like 10 seconds. So effects, you've got effects up, you've got effects down. So up effect would be like a riser. And then another kind of effect you have is just an accent effect, like a crash, where it just accents a moment, right? So up just says, hey, we're building tension, we're going somewhere new. Down says, hey, we're settling the energy, calm down for a second. And then accent effects just accent a moment. It makes it more exciting, and that's what a crash does. Right at the start when the bass kicks in, or like a massive entry, for example, that wouldn't necessarily be an effect, but like Fisher's horn in Losing It, just huge moment, right? And but that's like accenting a moment, but it's not effect. That's more of like a synth. But you can have effects that accent the moment. And so I'm going to treat this crash as like an effect right now. So just call this crash. Kind of a cool crash sound too, just not your standard, a little bit, but just some cool effects on there. All right, you can hear a string coming up. So let's go string. So. You hear all the automation. Most of it is gain automation. So this is up. Also, the perk texture here is coming up as well. So I'm just going to write the very descriptive up. So there we go. Hey, look at that. Cool. So let's move this guy over here. Cool. All right. Just going right, steamrolling right through. Sometimes you can have an edit right here. And then you go into the B section of the bass drop. And the B section of the bass drop here, you can start working towards the break, right? You can lift the energy a little bit, maybe adding some extra drums, like a bigger open hat, maybe a 16th. Hat's a little bit more standard. And then maybe start pulling into the break, which is where you start introducing the main hook. And so you can start low passing up the vocal, classic thing to do. But let's see what happens here. In this case, he's just basically just bringing these sounds up across the entire bass drop, which is cool. I like that move too. So let's come over here and then, oh, we don't have the high pass on the bass. Let's get rid of that. And then probably all of these guys just keep going up. Let's see. So that sounds like a different thing to me. It definitely sounds like a Vox Atmos here, but there's also some chords that come in. So this would be a little bit of a B lifter transition. So again, in the B section, we can kind of A section, B section it. And the B section, you can have a lift, which is just a sound that comes in to literally lift the energy, or you can have a transition. And so in this case, a little bit of chords. It's kind of serving both roles because they come in right away, but they're also evolving. And that's kind of the main difference between a lift and a transition. A lift comes in abruptly, comes in right away. We are lifting the energy. And then a transition slowly evolves over time to give the feeling that we're moving somewhere else. All right, so this is going to be chords. There we go. And let's color that. Or it could be like a pad. I'll write a pad. Pad makes more sense. Chords make it sound like there's some kind of progression going on. But of course, this is evolving, and we're going to use, once again, the very descriptive term, up. Ooh, a little bit of chord change there, or at least notes moving around, so that's nice. Interesting thing is, like, as the notes get added to this, they're going down. So this note right here, the main note you're hearing there, like in the kind of wider pad, is whoo, and that's a C. And then you'll hear a note come in that's a B flat. So it's starting to step down. Now, I might be reading too much into this, but probably not. But, you know, if you're stepping down in a melody, you're walking towards settling the energy, right? If you're going up in a melody, that's building tension. Just naturally, you're literally walking away from, say, the tonic note of the scale, which would be the first note in the scale. If you walk away from that, above it, it builds tension. Just like think of a riser. But if you start walking down in a melody, that gives a feeling of we're settling the energy. And guess where we're going? We're settling the energy in the break. So you could feel how that happens when, as soon as that next note comes in, which is a tone down, it just feels like we're starting to settle. Interesting. Right there. And then right there. So he might be walking all the way down to the A flat here, right there. But the whole point is walking down, making the chord, filling out the chord a little bit, but walking down, which again settles the energy, gives the feeling of we're slowing down for a sec. So I'll go like this. No step down. To settle energy. All right. We'll probably talk about punks later, even though I called that a punk, because this track's got a lot of them later on, I'm pretty sure. So let's see. And then, hey, look at this. We have an edit. Let's get this guy in here. So what's this guy doing? So this is just kick, cut, HP bass. So you can hear the bass still in there. It's high passed, but there's no kick. So that's kind of the edit here. And again, edit, you're just removing the low end in some way. So in this case, completely removing the kick and then high passing the bass. And the reason why the kick cut here is a good strategic move is because when you're going into the break, a lot of times you could just bring the kick back in. But it would just be a little bit weird if you had the high pass kick here and it just keeps on going. Now that's happened tons and tons of times where you have like an edit going into the break and you just high pass the kick and that high pass kick keeps going. But this is kind of cool because it gives you a moment to step down further and then step up when you bring the high pass kick back in, right? The high pass kick could have kept going through here, but it went away. The kick fully went away, but it comes back. And so it has a little bit more impact when it comes back in here. So pretty cool. I like that. So let's cut this because I like that. Let's just make a note of it. And then we'll bring this over here and we're going to go to HP. Now we're in the break. So let's come over to our kind of a map here and we will create a new section and it's going to be the break. Maybe we'll say A section, B section it, right? You can A section, B section, every section of the track. So the B section here is just going to be built. So you give them a break, then you build. And the key thing for a break right here is what we want to do is we want to give them a break. And that's what high passing, just removing the low end is all about. It's just giving the people a break. And especially in the beginning of the track, if you're going to remove the low end, they're going to be standing there being like, what's going on? Give me something. I'm bored. And so what do? Another thing you want to do in the break when you give them a break is you want to occupy their attention somehow. So you slap them with the main hook. So in a break, you give them a break and you give them the main hook. And so right here, what do we get? We get a break and we get the main hook, right? Always. So let's go ahead and create a new track. We'll just call this Vox main. And we will then bring this guy in, just like that. Boom. And what else do we get though, right? Can't just have that. So I'm not hearing any of the rides, and I'm not hearing the little percussive texture. Vocal atmosphere, let's see. Who knows? It's buried if it's there. I'll just put it in because why not? Pad, let's see. Definitely in there, but let's just see how it evolves. Let's see. Okay, so there's another kind of vocally pad in there, so I'm going to call it a Vox pad. It's kind of playing a melody. I'll kind of map out what that melody is. I'm not going to go after the exact notes because I'm just going to map out the movement of the melody just so we can track it. So let's just start on C because, it's where everything starts. So do. Okay, so it seems so far it's just going back and forth on these. Let me just get these up. Well, that's going G sharp down to G. So let's just move these up to the right notes here. So one thing in general that I could say on melodies is, man, if you just want to have an interesting sound, just go after half steps. Hold on. Yeah, half steps. And half steps are just where you go one down semitones. Like, just makes things so interesting. Like, even in a bass line, like if you just play with the half steps, I even put this in a video one time. Like, they're just, it's what makes something sound interesting and cool. Like the bass line, you know, or the scale that a lot of people use is just the Phrygian scale. And then the reason why the Phrygian scale is so cool is if I just like map out the normal scale, now we're going to move on very quickly. But we'll just map out the first 5 steps of like a normal scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is just the first 5 notes of a natural minor scale. And the only difference between a natural minor scale and the Phrygian scale is that you take this second note and you pop it down 1. But now there's a half step relationship between the first note of the scale and the second note. And that is really cool. And so if you're playing a bass line, a lot of times you're just hovering around the tonic. But then, so if you just move it up 1, it just gives a really cool sound. And there's so many tracks that use that, you know. And one off the top of my head, like, is Fisher's Stop It. Or Losing It. Bump, bump, ba-na-na, bump, ba-na-na, bump, ba-na-na, dun-dun-dun-dun. But also Stop It. Ba-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. That's a Phrygian scale as well. The point is, half steps. Half steps, freaking half steps in melodies. It's so cool. So, yeah, cool. We just got a very simple, like, A, and then, like, A asterisk, right? Because, like, here you have, you can even do, like, A, B. Doesn't really matter how you chop it up. It's however you want to chop it up, you know. But for the most part, what's cool is that I like the refrain. I got a crush on you. And then, but these guys are the same melody, just different lyrics. Another thing is this is a down melody, and then it stabilizes here, kind of a little bit more of a flatter melody. But what I really like is the variation here. So we could do like a B asterisk, because the melody here, I got a crush on you, right? Crush on you. So going down, then this one, crush on you. So it just makes it a little bit more exciting. But very, very cool. I like that. All right, so break. What do? We gave him a break and we just introduced the main thing. That's it. What's the main thing? It's just this little melody right here, where you got an A, a B, and then that repeats with a little extra sauce on the end of the B. That's it, right? Cool sound though, right? It's got like definitely using some kind of four Monty thing or pitch, just moving it, making it higher. Just sounds cool and weird and unique. All right, and then what? We're going into the build, all right? And so the build is where we build tension. And so let's see how that's happening. So we got a snare roll. You can hear the change in the drums. So this is high pass, but also cut the hat. I'm sorry. Yeah. There's also this lower bass entry you can hear, bass entry, where it's just like kind of like this little farty sound. Right. And if you listen. This repeats so far. We'll see if that changes, but so this snare roll is low pass up because starting with the low pass. And then this guy, oh, okay, I see. So this is not a bass entry. This is a previewing what's to come. So this is cool. So this is a preview. And this is also a preview where the bass opens up a little bit more. So this right here, we're going to cut the kick, right? So we're staging the removal of sounds. So cut kick. Or I should just say, clap only at this point because it's only the clap. Okay, that's where the snare cuts. All right. And so then that's still going. The snare goes away. This vocally thing goes away. The string continues throughout. I forgot to bring that in. Maybe we could take off up on here. Effects up, definitely. Let's listen. So you can hear that wide noise. You can also hear a tonal riser down the middle. So wide, so we can do like panning noise, tonal, middle. Cool, and then we're getting a little glitch on this. So we'll go ahead and just go like this. That should be like, we'll map it. Oh, that's cool. All right, so let's see. I'll just go like this. We'll just go crush, 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 and then we'll go an octave down on this one, because just to make it see that it's different. And then I'll color this like a yellow so it stands out, because that is the payoff moment right there. And that's where the clap cuts. All right, cool. All right, and that's the build. So how do we build tension? Mostly through snare roll or staging down the drums, risers. Let's see what else. Is there any reverby things? Like, are they pushing anything into a reverb? Also opening up the cutoff on these guys. Cool. Yeah, pretty simple. Pretty simple. Just a little bit of snare roll. Again, bringing those drums down, up effects right through there, and then delivering your standard kind of payoff where you just cut things, hit them with the payoff. In this case, a little bit of a vocal glitch. So that's kind of cool because it's denying expectations. Like here, this has always been the end of the B. This is just that slight variation, end of the B again, and then you expect it here, but nope. And that's what makes it exciting. It makes people pay attention a little bit more, and then they get whacked with the drop. And so let's go ahead and bring that over, and then bass as well. And let's see. So let's bring over the bass here as well. So let's go HP, and it's probably playing through here. And that is this sound. All right, the bow, 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 bow. So that's getting previewed. All right, and so we are gonna do, we'll just do bass hook for now. And we'll go ahead and bring this in right. Let's see what's going on. Let's just bring everything over. Let's see. So obviously we have the beat, we have the bass, a little bit of that main vocal. Whoa, right there. Let's see. Da, da, da. That's kind of cool. A little exciting vocal thing. One other thing I want to point out here is that this is not only lower, it's also wide. And let me just make sure yeah, so this is kind of normal in the sense that it kind of is exactly what's playing on over here. This one is different. It's different in one way, which is that it's lower. It's different in a second way, which is that it's wide. And this, I love this because this is just something you can always do. If you have 1 degree of difference, if you add 1 degree of difference to something, add just one other dimension. And it just makes it so much more interesting. Like if they just took I wonder if we can do this. Like I'm just going to go like this and then pop this guy down an octave. And we'll just change this from complex to there. And we'll go like this. So it probably going to sound like crap, but you'll just hear that this is going to just be an octave down, but it's going to be straight down the middle again. Like that's cool, but it's only 1 degree of difference. You know, you want to, like, if you just add 1 extra dimension to it, where this is now an octave down, but it's also wide, man, that is just something that you can do with almost anything. Like, if you want to just add variation and just change 1 little thing, again, just change 1 extra degree of difference or dimension of difference. And, yeah, so check it out. Sick. And that's such a good example of that. It's like a perfect example of that. All right, so we got a little bass hook here. Maybe we can map out the rhythm. One thing to see is that it's a kind of a much cooler rhythm, right? More of like a dotted 8th, 3/16 note style rhythm, whereas that contrasts with the underlying offbeat bass pattern. So let's map it. So... I'm not gonna lie, that's hard for me to hear right now for some reason. Bum ba dum bum bum ba dum bum bum ba dum bum bum bum. Ah, okay, duh. So this is gonna be on the offbeat, and then right here, and then right here. Oh, okay, yeah, there we go. So this is just your exactly your dotted 8th standard 3/16 note rhythm. Boom ba dum bum bum ba dum bum bum ba dum bum bum ba dum ba. Cool. Yeah. And so you can see it's kind of cool. It just contrasts with that rhythm right there. This one plays at the same time, but almost every other note is different. Okay, and then we're getting another little bass hook. I'll still call it a bass hook because kind of all these sounds are. We'll just call it like, we'll call it 2 for now. I'll probably make it be a little bit more descriptive about it in a second, but that just plays right here. Cool. So, yeah, here we go. All right, and then we're getting a little bit. I'm just going to delete the A right there. You found out. Cool. So one thing is notice is where these happen. Like the found plays pretty much at the same time as this guy, just on that 16th note, just before the next beat. And so doing a little bit of follow the leader here, just accenting the interesting parts of the vocal, but other things I want to say about that, but we'll keep going. All right, interesting. So that moves to the 4. All right, and so before, this was only playing on the 8s, like at the end of 8 bars here, that little noise thing, but now it's moved to the 4. That's interesting. I think. Let me see if am I being right about this? Yeah, it's playing at the 4. Before it was playing on at the end of every 8 bars, but in the drop here, it's now moved to the 4, around the 4 bar mark. So right here, the drop starts at 65, but that sound starts to play at 69. All right. All right, so let's just move these guys over, and then we'll move this over here as well. Same thing. So just so one thing to think about too when it comes to drops, like when you're working on your drop, like your 8-bar loop, when you start getting things going, and nothing wrong with working in the loop, like 100% the right thing to do, but use this word, just think pattern. Establish a pattern and then repeat the pattern. And then something will happen over here. One of the best songs that gives a really good example of a pattern is there's a couple songs, like was West End's Drum Death. Great example of a pattern. I want to break that one down too. And then Odd Mob's Palm of Your Hand remix is really good. This one's starting to seem like a really good example because it's just such a clear pattern. And then it's getting repeated right away. And so it's just teaching it's giving the listener something very easy to latch onto, but all different sounds, all interesting sounds. This sound is different, and that's being played at the same time as this, so that's kind of like, whoa, crazy moment. These two are now playing at the same time, so vocal plus some kind of bass hook. Again, vocal plus bass hook here, vocal plus bass hook here, vocal plus bass hook, vocal plus bass hook. Over here, we're getting something more familiar that was from the earlier in the track, which is that noise into the wub. A lot to say about this moment right here, and I will, but I want to just develop this a little bit more, and then we'll kind of revisit, because this is another really good example of something I talk a lot about. If you've watched these breakdowns, you know it, and you're going to hear it again. There we go, and that's what we want, right? We're getting that full vocal now, so yeah, so that's a little bit of variation, right? So establish the pattern, present the pattern again, repeat the pattern, but just a little bit of variation. All right. Okay. What the hell was that? Let me just see if it lines up with this guy. So it has this thing, the noise, but then there's some crazy other bass stuff that goes on. So I'm just going to do like bass hook 3 here. And it's almost, I call it a bass hook, but it sounds like some kind of heavy processing on a vocal. Like there's definitely a bass shot that kind of comes up through here. Like a reverse kind of thing. You can hear that. And then some kind of weird, I'm going to move these down here. Some kind of like vocal Vox shot, some kind of crazy, we'll call it like a Vox crazy thing, because that's about as descriptive as I could be about it right now. And then we'll start coloring these things like green, maybe. Who knows? Maybe I'm getting a little crazy, but we're going to do that anyway. Okay, here we go. So that's right here. So we got tuk-a-chit. So that's just going to be playing on the 1 E and. I'll just give a little bit of space to these guys so you can see it in the view up here. So okay, cool. That seems to cover it. And then I'm going to do the same thing for, we'll call this punk as well. So I'm going to color these guys all green, because these are like the kind of exciting moments of the track. This is what you can spend a lot of time on when you're working on your own track. And when I mean like a lot of time on, I mean just like have fun with it, you know. Let's get rid of this, and there we go, something like that. Cool. I'm going to ungroup this, and I'm going to ungroup this. You know, the funny thing is, I'm just trying to figure this out as I go, right? And so grouping those two together was limiting, because if I was going to work on this in my own, if I was going to use this as inspiration, and I started grouping these things, I would think, hey, these need to be grouped. And that's not true, right? This is just a noise right here, and then these happen to play rather than this one, you know. And so it's just different sounds coming together. So here we go. Cool, and then we're getting a ride lift. You can hear some of the strings come in. Let's just go ahead and just duplicate this across because it's probably going to be the same thing, but with some variation. If we're wrong, then we will change things, but that's probably going to be the case. We've got, let's hear if the perk textures are in. The ba-da. So let's see if they're over here. Nope, it's not in there for sure, and neither are the rides. So let's go over here now. Okay, the perk texture is not in there. Maybe it was just something, I think it'll come back later. But at the same time, if it doesn't come back later, maybe it was just something here added to create a little bit of interest, you know? But let's see. Okay, but we definitely have the string. Let's bring this over here. And this is gonna be up again. Okay, you can hear those chords coming in as well. So let's go get the pad and bring this in over here. So we'll just call this up as well. All right, so let's check what we've got here. We've got the full beat, we've got the bass. These come back, the bass hook, let's just check it. One thing we can check to see, are these static? Like, or are they evolving? So here's the first one. Here's the next, this one. So those sound identical. All right, so here's this guy. All right, same thing. Yeah, for the most part. All right, there's some kind of phaser on there that's probably moving slowly, so it moves these in different areas of the stereo image. But we've got the ride. Let's check the vocals now. We just have to check what we brought over. Found out, same thing as over here with a little delay on it. Yep, that guy again. And then we're going to get the vocal over here. Let's wait on that one. Let's keep on checking. And then here we have the pad coming up. String. Is that the same? Let me just check if that's the same as the vocal pad. Let me see. Here's the vocal Atmos. Yeah, you could definitely hear that's a vocal right there. Something you can get in like a tool room pack. Okay, and then string, that's up. Okay, let's check these guys. So, yep, same thing over here, and then that goes into there. And then let's check the end now. Are we going to get a vocal, or are we going to get something new here, right? Just like we had the pattern, establish a pattern, repeat the pattern with a variation, establish a pattern again with some drum lifts. Remember, this whole thing is about how the hooks and groove develop over time. And one of the ways that drums develop is you just add sounds over time. And so here we're adding a ride. That's a drum lift. And so this is just presenting the pattern again, but it's okay because we are lifting the energy. We're also starting to introduce these things, which are going to come up in volume as transitions to bring us where? Into the next section, right? And so if we took out the ride, if we took out the pad, if we took out the string, these are going to be very similar, right? Very, very similar. They're going to be structurally identical, I would say. But a producer working on their track will feel insecure about that because they're like, well, I have to change it, you know? Well, no, you can have the same underlying hook structure because you want some repetition. Otherwise, the listener is going to be in a state of total chaos, which is what they do not want. But then what you can do instead of just completely changing the pattern all the time is just lift the energy and start to transition to somewhere new. That's it. It's that simple. And then as we come back over here, I've been making you wait for it. Let's see what happens. All right, so we get an edit. Let's put this on here. And we forgot to put a drop up here on the edit map. So this is going to be hook drop 1 because we put the hooks over the, whoops, that's not right. Hooks over the groove. There we go. That's why it's called a hook drop, because you put the hooks over the groove, something catchy over something dancey. Identical, right? Except for the things, the peripheral things. except for the peripheral things. These two 8 bars are identical in their pattern and the hook pattern that's presented. Bass hook, vocal, vocal, little bass hook, vocal. Well, also the wub, the noise into the wub. Bass hook, post vocal, and the vocal continues, and then that pattern gets presented again, just with peripheral things changing, right? A slightly bigger, more context with that ride, and then these guys acting as lifts, but also transitions into the next section. So cool. Is there an edit right here? Let's see. No, cool. So you just steamrolling through there. Love it. So interesting, this is what I was talking about before. Here, you can see the high-pass kick is still going, and then we just get the high-pass kick continuing, which is slightly different than what happened before. And you could feel the difference. Like this one is going to slightly feel more impactful, because a little more satisfying, you could say, because the kick goes away, then it comes back into the break. Watch. And then we're reconnected to the rhythm, right? The track floats for a second without the kick, but right here, that doesn't happen. Different move. All right, there's some automation going through here. Let's see. Oh, cool. There's some bass automation right here. So this is going to be high pass kick or just overall groove, and then high pass auto on the bass, because you can hear the bass is... Or it just cuts out right here. So the staging the high passing. So the high pass of the kick comes in right here, and then the high pass of the bass comes in right here. So that's kind of cool. We'll actually split that up. So we'll go like this. So this will be HP kick, and this will be HP bass. But what's an edit? An edit is just simply where you just remove the low end, usually to trigger or to kickstart a new section, or to, like, if you're going to edit at the 8, then it just kickstarts the B section, right? And then if you're going to just edit here, then we're obviously going into a new section right here. So let's go now into the second break. Yeah, let's go into the second break. All right, so this guy is going to be HP, and now we're going into a different vocal, which is cool. So I'm just going to go like this for now, and go like this, and then we'll call this verse. All right, so I'll call this chorus, because that's, to me, feels like the chorus. This feels like the verse. So then this guy is high pass 2. We get those bass entries, or that kind of bass hook. Another crash accent effect right there. Where are you? Right here. And so go about right there, I guess. Okay, so obviously the pad's coming up. And let's just move this down here. With a string. I'm going to color this vocal a different blue, just so to differentiate them a little bit. So this is just kick only. All right. So we're going to get that, this guy right here that played at the 8 earlier, now at the 4, that comes back. Listen to the difference, though, in the presentation of it. So just definitely pulled back here in the mix. Right. And then we got this guy again. And let's see if we're missing this guy right here. Let's see. Nope. So this one is not playing. It's just these guys for now. There's a vocal coming up in the background. Again, a Toolroom mess type of thing. You know, you just hear these vocals a lot in like Toolroom tracks. So I follow that. But like, you know, vocal, female, drone, I'll call it. You know, so back here. All right, what did we say earlier? A section, B section, everything, right? Even right here, the hook drop. The hook pattern stays the same. A lot of times when you're doing an A section, B section, and a drop, the B section was where the hook completely changes. So let's say the A section would be like vocals, the B section would be like sound design. But even right here, you can A section, B section it, because what happens here is you're getting lifts and transitions coming in, right? Just new sounds. And so here would just be like chill. You're just introducing putting the hooks over the groove. Here, you're introducing lifts and transitions so that you get A section, B section, that. But here, again, break. We're giving them a break. We're introducing a new vocal, the verse. And then in the B section here, we're just going to be building, right? And so let's see how that happens. Let's see if there's any kind of special transition things going on. Sometimes the best transition is no transition. So no bass. That's cool. Ooh, hold up. Ooh, you can hear an ARP coming up here. So let's do ARP. And whoa, that's not the right color. There we go. So yeah, you can hear it coming up there. So it might be just coming up here over time, low pass or volume, whatever. We'll just write up. So so just C, E flat, F. And then this is a Vox rep. That's a key way to build tension. When you think tension, think rep, roll, rise, grow. Rep is hook repetition. This is a hook repetition, right? And it's usually bookends, right? So what are you going to rep? So you can rep the end of this, or you could rep the beginning of whatever the payoff is going to be, right? Because imagine rep, 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 boom, and then it just like drops. Like, what's the vocal over here? So I got a crush, right? So I got a crush. Imagine that's the payoff. I got a crush. So you could rep as I got a crush, and then boom, that's just satisfying. But here, rep in the end, the end, like again, just bookmarks. Oh, and then we have that one pad. You can hear it moving around. This guy, the up-down pad. Is that playing over here? Nope, I don't really hear it, so. Okay, this vocal seems to go away. I'm also going to write up. It's very soft in there. It's underneath the string though, so if you're trying to listen for it, just try to listen underneath the string and you should be able to hear it. So bum 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 bum. I'm just going to put up effects because I just feel that they're in there, even though there's so much going on and all of it's like going up. Let's bring the pad over. Let's bring the string over. I'm just going to bring all this over, even if it's not, you know, oh wait, that's not there. I already checked for that. Of course, we have a snare roll in there, and let's bring this guy up. Cool. In this case, though, you hear the top of it first before the bottom. So this would be like a high pass down. So instead of low passing up, you can hear the bottom of the snare here. But here, you start to hear the top before you hear the bottom. So this is high passing down. Hear that? You don't hear the bottom yet. And now we know why. Because there's going to be a kick roll, right? So let's go ahead. Because then instead of, you can have the bottom of the snare playing with a kick roll. You could totally do that. But in this case, it's a lot cleaner because we only have the top of the snare playing the 16ths. But then that's creating the space underneath to create a kick roll. And so that's just clean mixing. But again, you could totally get away with having a kick roll and the bottom of the bottom of the snare, God, just blasting. So this is a kick roll. And let's see if we get the little bass shot here. Nope. So just right here, and then now we're just pure build. Not trying to create little moments that knock you out for a second. Just pure build, right? Cool. That's so we have that up effect here for sure. So right here, this guy high passes up, high pass up and out. So they're just taking them out. Same with this stuff, this is getting high passed up and out, up and out. Same with pretty much everything except for that riser. And so we'll just go HP up and out. Just gonna copy this down because why not? So this is fun because let's just get an auto filter here. And we'll go, where are you? Why? Oh, what's going on? Am I blind? Do I not have that in? Oh my gosh. Okay. So let's come over here. And this is cool because like what's happening with the kick is that high passing down, and then high passing back up. So if we imagine the automation, probably around like 200. And then we could just filter this down and then filter this up like this, maybe up to like 500 or something. And then what I'm going to do is just bring this down over here just so we don't freak out about the filter and stuff. Now, my question is that just an entry or is he pushing things back in time? Good. He's not. Keeping things on time. All right, sweet. So I love that. So I love calling this shit. It's like, yo, this is just creates such epic moments. Cool. Okay, cool. So this is now HD2, which is hook drop 2, because we're putting the hooks over the groove. Now we have a completely new sound that hasn't really been previewed. I haven't heard it. Let me just map out this ARP really quick, just in case if you guys download it, then, or if you download it, then. So boom. So F here. So C. Boom, boom, and now it's going to be E flat. So then this again. Wait, is that? Oh, right here. Then we have the C. And then we just have that double hit. And then this guy down here. So then we get that guy. That's what I was waiting for. And then there we go. And that should just repeat, but there you go. Now you got the little art pattern if you want, you know, a little pluck, little noise on top. Now, of course, that's this guy. Wait, this guy over here. Just on steroids. So that's fun. You hear the subtle saturation on that thing? Just driving it. Look at that. That's amazing. I love how that just gets chopped off. That's so sick. All right, let's bring the beat in, and we'll just leave some space. Hold up. Let's go ahead. I'm going to turn the automation block on. There we go. And I'm going to chop this guy off. Bring the bass over as well. Let's just chop this off. There's definitely a bass underneath it. And we can even kind of see if we come over to the spectrum. Oh, damn. There's not. That's kind of interesting. Damn, that sounds thick. But yeah, there's no sub. Should make sense, yeah. Obviously, it fills out right there. So I can hear a little bit of a tail of a 909 hat that I don't remember hearing before. So it's in here, but is it over here? No. So there it is right there, maybe. Because I know we did like a little hat lift. We pointed that out. Is that the same thing? Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. So what do we have? We have the beat. We have the bass. Okay, we have these guys over here. So I'm going to start bringing this over like that. No vocals, but we have a new kind of sound design hook. And that's just the da-da-da-da-da-da, which is something that Biscits have been doing for a minute now, which is always cool. So this is just going to be your SD lead. We'll just call it like an 8 note. Because it's just playing 8 notes. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Kind of a cool accent right here, right? So I'm gonna just put that right here, just this little accent. So I'm just gonna call it accent. So then we get this kind of little second bass hook. So, and we need to map this guy out. So this is just playing on 8th notes, so we'll just go like this. So some very slow mono phaser on there, or it could be some kind of filter and serum, whatever was used, but that's what's creating that slight movement there. And then we're just bringing back our old buddies. So let's go get this guy, and let's just copy all of this and go like this. And let's just see how much is there and how much is not. So there's the noise, and then we get the what. And then we get this guy, but it's not as crazy as it was before. But we're getting a little variation here. So it's like boom, ba-dum, boom. So we'll just go like this. We'll just pop it up an octave just so it's very clear. Not necessarily as an octave, it's not. Boom, ba-dum. So this guy again. One thing I want to point out is that I'm going to go get a phaser and put it on this guy. And just imagine that, like, let's see, so imagine that it's kind of like, let's automate this guy. And you can hear the intentional automation, that it goes up to about halfway and then it starts walking down. So and then we get this guy again. All right, so the noise. And then the little, do we get the bass, the reverse bass thing? Yeah, I'm going to call this bass or rev for reverse. Okay, steam rolling through. There's no edit right here. So, okay, let's continue for the next section here. We're just going to copy this over. Hit that. So this obviously continues. Let's go like this, and I'm going to move this back here just so I could duplicate that. So there we go. Any kind of crashes? Let's see. Nope, here. Nope. Okay, some new things coming in. Let's see what they are. Okay, some kind of high saw-ish type of wave thing. All right, we'll call this SD high saw. You can hear the ride come in with that. And we're getting this bass accent again. And I really like this. This is a move that I want to really take note of, that the lifts right here don't come in until this guy is done, right? Like, it's very easy to just copy lifts over, but this is a little bit more of an intentional move where let this be clear and then bring the lifts in. I really like that. See, just little details that you pick up on. Like, literally, I'll point like one or two or three of these things out in like every track breakdown, where it's like, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, that little saw just kind of hides that ride coming in, just gives a little bit of extra thing. One thing though, I want to see if this guy plays earlier. So this little tiny hit could be a little bit of a lift here, or an elevation here over and above the first drop. So let's see if we get that little hit. Nope, not there. Nope, there's no accent after these. Nope, here. Nope. So here, and then we get it. Boom, that little hit. All right, so just extremely subtle variations, right? But they're there. Now, I don't think we've gotten this far yet, but you can ask the question, is the pattern here going to get repeated? Because this is a little variation, right? We get that extra jump up here. And so what do you think, right? So before we saw here, we had the pattern, that we established a pattern, we repeated the pattern. Here we're establishing a pattern, and it's starting to repeat, but do you think it's going to repeat there? We'll see. Of course, right? Cool. Trick question. So I'm just going to put it right there. So this is like where it kind of fizzles out. And then we have the ride. And then, of course, these guys repeat here at the 4. Okay, cool. Let's keep going. And then let's bring the full groove back over. Okay, so what happens over here? I'm going to extend this. So kick and bass. So this has no 909 hat. You can hear that they're settling the energy because we're going to the strip and then the main break and build here. Strip for me is still part of the main break and build. Strip is just kick, bass, hook, but we'll talk about it when we get there. But we're settling towards the main break. So here's the main break right here. And we're settling the energy, and so there goes away the hat, right? The 909 hat. So here, hold on a second. Let me just be sure. So here we have the ride, but do we have the 909 hat? I honestly can't hear that. I don't think it's there. So yeah, that's something you could certainly do though. Like as you make your way towards the main break and build, you can settle the energy by starting to take away some drum elements, you know. But here where the ride's continuing, so let's just pull that ride over. So noticeably the bass hook is not here. Cool. Here we have an edit, so let's just put that in there. And what's going on here? So this is just high pass kick and bass. All right, so now we're bringing, it's almost a callback now to the drop that's over here. Maybe I'll just bring these vocals over like they were in that previous drop. So this is that lead that seems to continue here. So let's bring this over and then let's go like this. So you can hear the vocal pad coming back in from earlier. So, or the Atmos as I called it back here. So let's get rid of this. The string. And just so you can hear it, let me play the vocal Atmos back here. And ooh, I think I hear the texture coming in over here. Yeah, definitely there, but this is coming up. This is coming up. I'm coming up. Is there any difference in these? Let's check it. Jeez. Okay, so starting to settle down in terms of the... So we can even draw this in here. So this guy's starting to settle down in terms of the frequencies. So we're starting to bring that down a little bit. Okay, so let's check the vocals here. No bass accent here, right? So I'm going to call this punk because it's more of a punk than anything. All right, and we'll talk about that in a second. But oh shit, they are not there. They are not there. That's why I was talking about it. So, okay, so even though I can't quite tell if that 909 hat is there, you can hear definitively that some of the most exciting sounds of the mix are not here, right? So these bass hits are not there. These kind of wubs and stuff are not there. And so you can see it's a definitive step down as we move towards the main break and build. So very cool. So this perk section right here is definitely a synth because you can hear it coming up right there. So this is SD, like this is gonna be like I'm gonna call it Skippy synth because that's kind of what it is. It just happens at the end of a beat on the last 16th. So I'm just gonna move this down. Cool. And sweet. And you can hear that right here. You can hear that it's a synth. Or we're going to go back to the way that I had it, and we're going to add another sound because I'm hearing another sound in there, right? So that's kind of interacting with that sound. Let's see. So we're going to call this SD skipping synth. And SD just for sound design. And so a little bit redundant, but that's okay. So it's just happening in between these guys right here. So let's see. So you can see it right here is kind of where you can hear it. So that's probably coming up through this whole section here. So up right there, but you could definitely hear this percussion thingy and then that synth coming up. Just a very simple sound. The vocal right here doesn't finish, so it just found out and that's it. So we don't get the full phrase. All right, and now we are getting into the main break and build. So let's put a little map up here and we'll go main break and build, or MBB. That's how you spell MBB. MBB, and cool, so like that. Now the first part here is the strip. So a strip is just going to be kick, bass, hook usually. Other ways that you could do it, but that is going to be what it is most of the time. So let's duplicate this. So let's just kick. And I'm actually going to just call this right here the strip. And I usually color that purple for myself. Let's go like that. Cool. So definitely the pads. Where are the pads? Right here. So let's move this guy into the strip. So we get kick, bass, pad. All right, we got this here. We've got that little Skippy synth that we just brought in, so we can move that over. We get the little percussion on the sides, so going back to what was over here. Also hearing that little pattern or that little vocal pad movement. Maybe it's not a vocal pad, that's okay, but you can certainly hear this up-down kind of thing. Ah, so that is just the ARP. The little Skippy synth thing right there is just the ARP. Okay, cool. So we're going to now, instead of call this the Skippy synth, we're going to bring over the ARP. But let's get the MIDI. Let's get the one with the MIDI here. Which is now going to be, oh, I don't want to do that on this one. I want to save that as high passing up and out. So let's get this up like that. And we can get rid of this one here. So here we go. This is going to be almost, it sounds like it's high pass down because they're letting the top in. So slightly different pattern now. So let's figure out that pattern. So yeah, interesting different spot for this double hit. So this one goes like this, maybe? Yeah. So boo boo doo doo. So let's color that a different color here. Maybe I guess color this color. So I'm going to duplicate this because there seems like it's a slightly longer pattern. Let's see. So it seems like it's going like this. Yep. Yep. Cool, there we go. So that ARP is coming up. So I'm just going to write up. So edit right here, you can hear the, let's see what's going on. So this is just a high pass on the kick. The bass is still going, so HP kick. So now this is HP kick and bass. So let's go like this, HP kick. Is there any tops? Nope, so this is just HP bass. All right, so now we're going into the showcase. So anytime you have a strip right here, like after a drop, that's usually where the energy just kind of settles. You're just kind of settling things down. And then after that, when you make that final step down, you could think of these as steps, right? So here's high energy. Well, we can actually go way back to here. So this is super high energy back here. Then we step down right here. Step down again right here. Final step down right here. But when you make that final step down, kind of mostly in the groove, like you can hear from here to here to here, we're just stepping down in the groove. So here, this is basically the full groove for the most part. And then here is just kick and bass. So we're removing the top end energy. Here is we're finally making that final plunge in the groove because we're removing the low end. So this is kind of the basement of the groove. However, when you reach this point, and it's usually the second 8 bars of the main break and build, it gives you the opportunity once again to showcase the main hook, because that's what this section is back here, the break, right? So this is when you're settling the energy right here, stepping down the energy. When you finally make that final plunge, this is kind of that break section, and you can present them with the main hook. It gives you the opportunity to showcase the hook, just like in the breaks. All right, so all right, cool. So now we're going back to the main vocal. So let's bring this over here. I thought I copied it. Apparently not. Cool. So what else do we got? So we definitely have the high pass kick and bass. Okay, these guys seem like they're carrying over. So we've got the pad. We've got the, maybe we'll bring this pad over if they're the same thing. Maybe they're the same thing, maybe not. Who knows? And then we'll go to the ARP. String is definitely in there. Let's go get the string thing. So let's go over here. Cool, so you can hear some of those drums coming up. So let's see. I'm going to just do something a little bit weird because I don't want to write. No, we'll do this. We'll do drums up. Okay, but I'm going to color this orange. Sounds definitely like different drums. So just some kind of loop, some kind of disco loop. even the 16th note hat, that hasn't been in here at all, you know? Like there's a 16th note hat coming up as well. Now we're starting to preview this. We're starting to build things up. So let's go get this guy. So we got that kind of bass hook right there. So crush on you, is that here, Sue? Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, you can hear the bottom of the snare coming up. So this is going to be LP up. Vocals carry over. You can hear all the pads and the strings kind of doing their thing, just coming up. Did we miss any of them? Okay, string, ARP, ST high solid. Okay, it seems like we got it all. All right, so we got that guy. Man, that ARP is just loud. That's sick. Okay, and then the vocals are still going, just playing the same thing over and over. And then we have the beats. No bass right here. Okay, so the vocals definitely growing in reverb, so just take note of that. And then what else we got? Okay, we got a kick roll, so let's do kick roll. I'm going to switch this back to red here. That's also exactly where these drums stop, so... Cool, wait. Okay, and we can also just do the high pass automation here. So same kind of thing as before. Let's kind of like just pop this up a little bit. High pass kick. We'll go up to like 120 or something. And then, but same as kind of what happened before is we will bring this down and then up. So... and then up. So. And then we have that kind of, so this is panning up. So we'll just go panning up on the effect. You can hear it. Cool, and that brings us back to the original payoff back here, which is the crush, crush, crush thing. And we will put that over here as well. And cool, so. All right, we got the crush, crush, crush. So a little variation on what happened before, because before it was crush, 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 but this is staying the same. And then we're going back to the, so it's just really cool. Really good arrangement, like hitting all the principles, but still super creative. There's a lot to say about this, but so bringing things together. So we have this moment back here, and then that goes into a normal drop. Then we have this moment here, right? but then those get brought together, but is slightly with a slight variation because we don't go down in the crush. And then we do go down in the crush over here. So just extreme, like, principles done like really well, but also super creative, you know, really cool, all super intentional and deliberate, you know. And it's just like the details of this are sick. So that's another major takeaway for me is like the way that these just these different payoffs and how they're coming together, but elevated even more. It's not like we're getting, it's here, for example, let me show you what could have been. It would have been a very easy thing to do, and it would have been very easy to do because it's still really cool. But for example, you could have done something like this, where you just brought those two payoffs together, right? So see, that would have totally worked as well, but he's taking it to another level. You know, he's almost messing with producers and what us producers would expect to happen, which is kind of bringing these two together. But he's hitting us with a variation on it because he hits the crush, 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 no variation on the crush, hits us with the big bass kind of entry, but throws that deeper crushing with the bass entry. It's like super cool. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, sick. So let's now keep on mapping this out. So we've got HD3 now, because this is an HD3. Why is it an HD3? Because this is the third hook drop. We got hook drop 1, hook drop 2, hook drop 3. So this is an HD3 track. Okay, cool. So let's see what else. Did we miss anything? So let's go like this, but let's go like this. So we're gonna highlight these, let's duplicate this over, and then we will pop that down an octave, and then this down an octave, just like that, because that is kind of what's going on there. And then we have the crazy bass entry. Let's move this over. Oops, I'm gonna copy this and put that here, because that's just the bass kind of entry. I just want to highlight that in the overall arrangement map because those are the key moments of the entire track. That's what's just going to make everyone freak out on the dance floor. So then let's just copy this over for now here. We're going to have to copy the lead over, the kind of sound design-y phasery lead. But let's see if this gets us close to here. Yep, we're still getting that offbeat accent right there. Getting this guy. Okay, we're getting the P4s. Let's bring all this over. And then we got to talk about the key thing that I kept teasing earlier. I thought I was going to talk about earlier, but I guess I'm saving it to the end. Oh, hold up. Let's see. Is this still the same thing? Yep, he's still hopping up. A little bit more distorted and noisy. Let's see if it's... Nah, still pretty noisy right there. Okay. Okay, cool. So let's see. Just kind of a cool little white noise blanket on this sound too, a little bit. So you get some crazy automation going on, different automation than what was going on before. I'm going to bring this over, though, just so we can see how it's different. So... Interesting. So he's kind of going like this now. Rather than going up and down, it just keeps going up. So the energy just keeps kind of going up rather than just kind of like triangle waving it over here. But that's... So same thing as before, a little bit of a false start edit right here on the drop. So I'm just going to go like this. And so false start for me is just where you like, and a double kick. Okay, interesting. That definitely wasn't there before. So this is double kick. So just slightly more exciting edits. One of the things that you can do as the drops develop is just more exciting edits like that. Like just doing like something extra. So for example, before, so you would just steamroll through. So no double kick here, right? But here we're going to get a double kick, and then he removes a kick for a second, I think, or something happens here. Let me just see what happens, but definitely a double kick. So it removes the hat here. You hear that? So just creating some excitement and then opening up some space for that vocal to land. All right. And so again, bringing things back up from before. So before in the previous drop, this played for 16 bars, like the kind of sound design 8th note synth. And then later after 16 bars, that vocal came back, but now things are coming back quicker. So front loading the energy, front loading the presentation of the hooks. So let's grab these guys here and making it more exciting with the extra edits, the double kick, the hat cut, so that, boom, you get some space for that vocal. And do we get, just checking this. All right, whew. So Camtasia quit on me and almost gave me a heart attack, but we are good to go. Let's keep going. So here is really cool because these are little things that you can do. In case I'm repeating myself, let me just say it quickly. These are little things you could do here, like this double kick into the hat cut, because we're taking away the hat, or tops cut. Just little things that you could do to elevate the track over time. So even though like back here, we had some little things like this, but we didn't have, for example, a double kick right here, or even into here when the vocal comes in, a little bit of a high pass, definitely a dramatic thing. The other one has like a double kick. All right, but over here, just this extra little edit, you know? So, and then of course, as we keep going here, we're gonna get the saw wave thing that we got back over in this drop right here. And then that sneaks in the ride just like before. The thing about here is now we're sneaking into vocal earlier too. So front loading the energy right there. And let's see what else. All right, the synth is still continuing to evolve and go up and do the phasery thing. The bass hook, we've got that accent offbeat bass shot. Right, that. Okay, and then of course the moment here at the 4-bar part. Vocal again with the variation on the bass hook right here. Boom, and now we're gonna get the full vocal here, the crush, and then we're gonna go and get a high pass. Same edit as before here. Now we're presenting the vocal more. So back here, we just had that banana, got the crush on you, banana, and then found out. So got that saw wave plus the ride still on top. Let's just again the noise into the wub. The bass hook, the vocal, it's just the same things over and over, right? It's the same pattern that was established before, and it just plays, in this case, again and again. We're just introducing the vocal, a little bit slow with the pacing here, with in terms of putting one vocal here, then vocal here, and then speeding that pacing up, right? So here we have 32 bars, 16, 16. So the B section here, we're getting a little bit more full vocal, but the pattern that was established way back in the track is just continuing with that bass entry, a little bit of that bass thing, and then the little kind of donk thing, right? And then we get this this kind of noise into a wub at the 4, then we get hit with a bass again, but again, this is elevated because we have the kind of leap up there, but it's the same pattern, and then we get the bass hit again, and then we get a variation on the kind of noise into wub, and then bam, then we start bringing in the vocals, slow pacing at first, just on the 1 and then the 4, and then we get the 8-bar kind of big vocal edit, and then just the vocal presentation speeds up. But the underlying pattern stays the same with the bass hook. But here, since we're starting to work towards the outro, the exciting moments like this extra bass hit, this little bass accent, start to go away. So no offbeat bass like you got over here, right? So and now as we really step down, there's not any more of the little bass donk thing right here. And you can hear that the synth lead is starting to low pass down. You can hear that donk too, like this guy. This starts to settle down. So all these moves that I'm breaking down right now are two things. One, just showing you that the pattern just continues. But as we step down in the second half here, as we move towards the outro, you can see these systematic removal of these different sounds that are just settling the energy, but in very subtle ways, removing that extra accent, now removing these little bass kind of punks right here, low passing down the synth. All of these are just working towards the lower state of the energy as we get to the outro. Oh shit, and then these guys aren't even here. All right. And then you can even hear, and the last 8 bars, not only is the 8th note kind of synth, the phasey synth low passing down, we're also getting the string and the pad coming up. So here's the string coming up. You can also hear that kind of percussion coming back in. And so just interesting things going on here. So when we get to the B section, that percussion comes back in. When we get to the last 8 bars, we're starting to transition to the outro. And so that's why we're getting the string. That's why we're getting the pad coming up. That's why we're settling down this energy right here. That's why things are getting removed. And then finally, when you land at the outro, it's just going to be very easy to mix into the next track. A little disco hit there. Cool. And then the outro is pretty simple. It's just your basic outro, right? You've got groove for 16, and then you have beats for 16. And the whole time you have this guy, which was playing on the 4 in the drop, is now playing on the 8s again, just like the intro. So this kind of thing now just plays over here. The noise into the wub. And then we get an edit here at the 16 going into the last part, stepping down to the last part of the outro. And now just bass with no, just beat with no bass. And then at the very, very end, just stepping down into the high pass. Cool. And so one of the things that I didn't talk about before that I wanted to this whole time was just this is an amazing example of punks. What I call punks. Punks are punctuation, is short for punctuation points. And just like an English sentence, you have like a comma maybe in the middle of the sentence and then a period at the end of the sentence. So there's a hierarchy or a drama to punctuation. The same idea applies to like drops in a track. There's a grammar to it. And just like in a sentence, at the end, you might have this little punctuation point that's more dramatic than what happens halfway through. And so at the end, I call those punks at the 8-bar mark because they happen at the end of an 8-bar section. And then in the middle, around the 4-bar mark, that would be a punk at the 4-bar mark. But typically at the 8-bar mark, it's going to be a little bit more dramatic what's going on than what happens at the 8-bar mark. So for example, you could see here in this little 8-bar section here, as we go to the 8 bars, we have the high pass edit and we have this little kind of cool sounds. So check it out. right? But then here at the 4, we get some cool sounds. We just don't have the high pass edit. All right. Now this whole thing right here is what I would call like a P4 cluster. It's a pump cluster because here all of these sounds are around the 4-bar mark. This noise into wub then goes right into this bass kind of hook. And so this whole thing is a cluster, and it's a very exciting moment at the 4-bar mark. So here we have the 8. Here we have the 4. All right, we also have an entry. So that's a punk at the 1-bar mark. So right here. All right, and so the most important punks, when it comes to the most important punks, are going to be the 8 and the 4. The 1 can be very exciting, especially when you're starting a drop, just like over here. All right, but beyond the 1, the 4, and the 8, you can then chunk down even further, and then you can go to the 2 and the 6. And usually the 2 and the 6 are going to be the same sound. So, for example, that and then here. All right, and so that's the same sound. And even in other sections of the track, like when we come over here, then you can still see the vocal is underneath this one now. Same thing, right? So found out is just the 2 and the 6 are the same thing. And so this is an incredible example of punks. And if we zoom out and just kind of now take like an overview of this, I wish I went through and talked about punks a little bit earlier, because then I could have hammered it in your brain. And I do this in other freaking breakdowns too, but hammered in your brain. Look at the punks, look at the punks, look at the punks, look at the punks. But if we break down what's going on in the track, we have the chorus that comes in the first break. All right, because in the break, what do? We want to give them a break, but also introduce the main thing. Then we build some tension. Boom, now we're in the drop. And what is this first drop? This first drop is just the groove, so the drums and the bass, and then the punks. That's it. We got vocal punks, we've got sound design punks, we've got noise punks, we've got all sorts of crazy things, but it's just a punk structure. That's all this is. A 1, 2, 4, 6. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. That's all this is. So that was the 2 right there. Okay. I'm going to turn it down so you can hear me and so I could talk over it. Okay. That's the 4. Now this is the punk at the 8-bar mark. And of course, it's the most dramatic. Right? So let's keep going. Entry. So the bass sound, the bass pattern, and the vocal, that's an entry. 2, you found out, and the little donk thing, the bass donk thing. That whole thing is a P4 cluster. So you got the noise going into the wub, going into the bass pattern, plus the vocal shot, the vocal thing. Now, you could see this as a 6, and of course this is playing at the 6, but I see this as a P8, right? This little P6 thing right here could trigger the P8. The P8 is really just the edit plus the vocal, and so that's kind of how I would break that down. But this whole drop right here, it's just punks. That's it. Like, and punks is, some might say, well, this is just kind of ear candy. Yes, but ear candy is not a helpful concept because it's random. Like, if I told you, oh, you just got to put in some ear candy there. Like, what are you going to do? Okay. So start throwing random shit at the track, and you totally can. You know, but the thing about punks is that, yes, it's ear candy, but it's structured ear candy. It tells you where to put it. There's a hierarchy to it, and there's a structure to it. And so I find it to be a much more helpful concept. You could see it in this track, and you could see it in every other track that I break down, that things are always happening at the structural moments, because that's what the punks are. They just hit those they accent the little structural moments to give you little hits of dopamine. And then moving on, in the second break, we get a new verse that doesn't ever come back, but it's just a variation of the vocal getting a new verse. Build some tension, then we're going into a new drop, and this new drop has a crazy entry with that false start. And then we're going into, we get that new sound, which is the kind of phasey 8th note kind of bass. So, but all the punks are still there. So it's just the same punk structure with a very dramatic P1, a very dramatic entry, false start. And then the only thing that really is added is this new synth. And that's enough of a development. You know, it's not completely changing the song. It's not developing in a crazy way. It's just putting a big hook over the groove, and it makes perfect sense because over here, you got to teach people the punk structure. And then over here, once they get that punk structure, then you can hit them with something else and hit them with a big hook right here, which is the phasey kind of 8th note synth. And then all that breaks down in the main break and build, and we go back to the main vocal. That repeats for quite a while, but all the strings and all that stuff is just building tension, moving us forward and forward and forward to the ultimate moment, which is the coolest part of the track and the biggest takeaway for me. I love this because the fact that we have this interesting kind of transition or payoff going into the first drop here with the crush, 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 right? That, which is sick. And then over here, we're going to get this crazy false start. And then those two come together over here, but not just come together, right? Something else happens, which is then that you get hit with the crush, 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 crush 4 times, but then you get hit with but you don't get the octave down. And then with this guy, you get the false start, but with the crush, there's an octave down and then it drops even more. So it's so sick. And the claps. I didn't even put the claps in there, but maybe I could just throw the claps. So I'll just go like this. Claps. Just like that. Okay, cool. And that's really it. So teaching them the punk structure, giving them the punk structure again, but with the new hook on top, taking all of that away, and then bringing it all back, right? And just when you take it away, obviously the groove goes away and all that stuff, but then hitting them with the main vocal, right? So when the drops, you don't really get the main vocal a lot. You just get pieces of the main vocal, right? Punks of the main vocal. But in the breaks are all about just presenting and showcasing kind of the full vocal and then just kind of building tension, getting back into the drops, hitting with the punks, and then in the last drop, going crazy on that entry, hitting them with the punk structure again, and then dropping that synth for the last time and then just going to the outro. And so really cool arrangement, super cool arrangement, a lot of cool, detailed, creative executions of the principles, but the principles nonetheless to a T. And so hopefully this was a helpful breakdown. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. If you have your own comments about this track, I'd love to hear them from you. And so drop that too. You can download this MIDI map if you want to kind of use it as a guide when you're making a track. And other than that, I will see you in the next breakdown. Peace.